The Ethereum roadmap was last updated in November last year. Can you give me an update on the Ethereum roadmap considering its past, present, and future?
Yeah, and I feel like in general the Ethereum roadmap has been stabilizing quite a bit over the last few years, right? And because historically there have been a lot of things that have changed because of just changes in circumstances, changes in ideas, realizing that something doesn't work, realizing that something does work, new problems popping up. I think the big changes between last year and this year would be, one is just the realization that there's something to be done about staking centralization, right? Like the status quo of the different pools and solo staking being hard and all of those things is not really healthy. And there's I think a big opportunity to do some redesigns to the staking system that really alleviates some of those issues and both improve centralization and even try to make the algorithm more efficient. And for example, just have single slot finality, but only have 10,000 signatures in each slot instead of not having single slot finality and having 30,000 signatures in each slot, which is what we do today, right? There's a lot of room to try to once you make some trade-offs that I think realistically will have to be made anyway to really improve on efficiency and improve on decentralization at the same time. So that's one of the threads that I expect will continue to be worked on. Then data availability and that side of things is basically probably a bit slower than we expected, but it's still moving forward on the same path as we expected. In general, on scaling, I feel like the pendulum has swung back slightly toward more off-chain data stuff, right? Because of both because the amount of near-term and mid-term demand is so high that even the data availability that we can do is not going to be able to cover it, and because the level of security that you can get with off-chain stuff, I think, is higher than anticipated. A lot of the plasma ideas that I talked about a couple of days ago are probably a good example of that, right? But otherwise, still moving forward on data availability. I'm still moving forward on Verkle trees, snarking the EVM, all of the EVM improvement efforts, just all of those different things. So definitely, a lot going on the same path. I think nothing new on the functionality side. Maybe, unless you include the whole off-chain data thing, but that's kind of, by definition, off-chain, outside the layer one. So, it doesn't touch the core devs, yay. But it's, just a sort of responding to threats and making sure things like security and decentralization get preserved, and just some fairly small tweaks compared to years in the past. So in general, the roadmap is stabilizing, which I think is a really good sign.
Perfect. And you mentioned that at the beginning of that response, some ideas had changed. Is it important for the community to view the roadmap as something that can be dynamic if new information is introduced into the equation and things can change? Or should they really think of it as guidelines that are more concrete?
And I think there is different tiers of ideas in Ethereum in terms of how much people are attached to them, right? So at the top there is what people call immutability, right? That the hard forks should not just arbitrarily go in and take away some people's money and give other people money. And as we've seen in the DAO situation, that's something that people highly value, and trying to interfere with that is just extremely politically costly, and that's something that's going to be true no matter what the changes to technology are. Then there's a bit at a lower tier, things like proof of stake, and switching over from proof of stake, back to proof of work, for example, would just be totally politically unviable at this point. But switching from proof of stake to a better proof of stake, then there's, I think, a lot of room for discussion there. probably more than last year, especially now that the whole pool centralization discussion has come into the foreground more. Then you have things like the EVM, and I don't think like community members are really emotionally attached to the EVM. I think there's a desire to make sure that existing applications can keep running, and there's a desire to minimize complexity. And like those two things together basically already add up to like roughly keeping the EVM, and if you add functionality, do it sparingly. But like beyond that, there isn't as strong an attachment. And then you have like specific algorithms that like can totally be changed if people want to. And then once you get into the weeds, it's just all technical features that a lot of people don't really care about, and they're happy to defer to the experts. So I think it's a spectrum between all of those things.
Perfect, thank you. And the Dencun upgrade is expected to be live early 2024. What should we know ahead of time, and what can we expect on that?
So EIP 4844 is obviously the big one. And what's interesting, I think, about EIP 4844 is that if you look at the roadmap to full danksharding, right? Full danksharding is the one that gives us data space that could go all the way up to like 16 megabytes a slot or even more. Once you have EIP 4844 like out the door, the only hard forks that you need to get to full danksharding are just a parameter change, right? Just like changing the maximum number of blobs. And maybe at some point we just make that a voting system, and then you don't need any more hard forks to go up. And so the rest of the rollout to full danksharding is not a change to Ethereum consensus or execution. It's a change to this extremely isolated thing that just says, like, tell me that this block can be downloaded if he wants to. And like at the beginning, that is just done with full downloading. But over time, like that can be done with data availability sampling, and data availability sampling itself can be upgraded over time. And that's like a piece that individual clients can upgrade, like even separately, even out of sync with each other as the network improves. So yeah, it's the sort of thing that like once you do the first step, doing the steps after that is relatively easy in the sense that it's just like a group of people working in the corner, and they don't really have to interact much with the rest of the ecosystem. And yeah, once the first hard fork's out the door, then it's like a smoother ride from there, which I think is really valuable and good. Yeah, I mean, there's things after that like taking small steps toward getting rid of RLP is something that I'm excited about, just kind of cleaning up all of the different Ethereum consensus pieces. Yeah.